Okay, it's recording.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we're having a debate titled "Should Film Undergo Censorship in Malaysia?" Before we start, can I have both panels introduce their members?
Hello, my name is Destiny Naidu. I am the first speaker representing the government side.
Hello, I'm Diyanah, and I will be the second speaker for the government side.
Hello, I'm Tricia, and I'll be the third speaker representing the government side.
Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I will be the last speaker representing the government side.
Thank you very much. Can I now have the opposition introduce their members?
Hello, I am Suzy and I'm the first member of the opposition side.
Hi, I'm Ian, also known as Yuyan. I'm the second speaker from the opposition side.
Hi all, I'm Omar and I'll be speaking in third place in the opposition side.
Hi, and I'm Mini Ming, and I'm the last speaker for the opposition side.
All right, thank you very much. With the introductions out of the way, I would like to pass the time to the government to start with the first one.
Thank you. Now, in recent years, the Film Censorship Board of Malaysia, or LPF, has come under heavy criticism for limiting creative freedom through censorship. This limit can be attributed to the fact that Malaysia has only 3 classifications of censorship: U, P13, and 18. Muhammad Zambari Abdul Aziz, who is the chairman of Malaysia's Film Censorship Board, has told the New Straits Times in 2019 that in most countries, the authorities classify films without the need for censorship. This could be done because they have more classifications than we do. Examples are Australia and Germany, who have 6 different categories of film classifications, and the US, who has 5. The LPF do have plans to further introduce additional classifications such as P15 and P16, which would require less need for censorship. However, the problem is not that censorship limits creative freedom. The problem is that without it, national harmony and security of Malaysian citizens is compromised over the need of a single individual's emotional satisfaction for expressing themselves. In a world where a single video clip posted on the internet can spark national outrage and riots which lead to collateral damage and death, is there really no need for censorship in a country like ours? A country that is split between conservative and liberalistic mindsets. Furthermore, Malaysia is not like our communist neighbors. We do not enforce a full blockage of entertainment or information from the outside world. There is still space to express oneself. Should our government be the parents who give no rules or guidance to their children? Do we really want an unruly nation? And that concludes my point.
Thank you very much, Destiny, for sharing your point. Is there anything you'd like to add before I pass the time?
No.
All right, with that being said, I'll now pass the time to a member of the opposition.
A painting, a song, a dance, they're all forms of expression. So is film. Film is an art form and works of art should be available as their makers made them, not withheld by a censor. When a person expresses themselves, they are exercising their freedom of speech and expression. But we understand that these are not absolute, even though in Article 10 of the Constitution states that every citizen has the right to freedom of speech and expression. Many filmmakers feel the burden of censorship. Local film director Saw Tiong-hin, who produced the movie You Mean the World to Me, said that too many restrictions could end up changing the facts of a movie being produced and alter the gist of what the filmmaker tries to portray. Another filmmaker, Take Tan, found out the hard way when debuting his feature film Spinning Cases. It was initially banned for featuring an interracial relationship, sex scenes, and swearing. The film was later reinstated after drastic cuts. The traumatic experience prompted him to venture into directing commercials instead. Now, censoring films by cutting off scenes is unfavored by filmmakers, as they feel like part of their art is being taken away. To cut off scenes is to disregard the long hours of work being put behind making it. Each scene in a film takes a village to perfect. It takes weeks, even months. Not being able to show your hard work to your audience is unfortunately what several filmmakers have to go through in order for the film to be shown at all. In fact, the arts do not influence people's thoughts and feelings, let alone their actions, unless they connect with something already present in those people's personalities or experience. People choose what art they will look at, what films they will watch, what games they will play, or what sites they will visit because of who they already are. Now, I'm not questioning the good faith of the men and women of the Film Censorship Board, but is it right for a body to decide whether we can exercise our right to freedom of speech and expression before we ourselves are allowed to exercise those rights? After all, the purpose of art is to evoke emotions of the audience, to imprint meaning into their minds, and to be a free form of expression. Censoring art is the equivalent of censoring a person's own mind and preventing them to freely express themselves. We need to remind ourselves that we are not all offended by the same things and we do not all have the same opinions.
All right. Thank you very much, Suzy, for sharing your point. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I pass the time?
No.
All right. With that to be said, I'll now pass the time to the member of the government.
Thank you. I will be talking about how film censorship in Malaysia is important, especially for children and youth, as it can be a negative impact to them. So, children and youth are easily influenced by what they see in movies, such as bad words, sexual content, and violent scenes. And children may find it difficult to differentiate between fiction and nonfiction, and the whole dilemma with what is right and what is wrong. Hence, watching something influential or something that they see in movies may result in physical or mental damages, such as injuries if they follow like movies that are violent, and trauma if they watch something like a horror movie which has gruesome scenes. Although you may say that it's a parent's job to monitor what their children watch, it is important for LPF to take safety measures, as not all parents are as responsible as we would like to think. The government has to take the first step to set these guidelines. So without them, how would they know what is right or wrong? And how would parents guide? How would parents monitor all the things that the children watch? Thank you.
All right. Would a member of the opposition like to reply?
No.
All right, then I'll pass the time to the next speaker.
So hello. The point that I want to talk about is how censorship could breed ignorance among youth. So the excuse of protecting youth is no longer valid, as there is a big source of uncensored information on the internet. So what cannot be seen at the cinema or TV or can't be reached by the government can be streamed throughout online. There are negative influences such as alcohol, drugs, smoking, and violence that are very much part of our life. So shielding our youth from such issue will only make them more ignorant. As said by NCAC in 2000, censorship protects ignorance, not innocence. They will not know what to do when they are faced with this kind of issue. With this, they should be exposed to this issue in a relevant context, as said, maybe with more proper classifications, better classifications, so that they are eased into issues, provoke discussions among themselves, and this would really benefit their critical thinking skills tremendously. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Yuyan, for sharing your point. Is there anything you'd like to add before I pass the time to the next speaker?
No, thanks.
I would like to add something about Ian's point. So, what about the children who do not have fit parents or guardians who are willing to guide them? Children who perhaps watch movies through their friends' TV because their parents are too busy fighting or too busy with work. So they don't have time to correct any wrong behavior a child may pick up from what they watch. Now, the government cannot regulate the quality of parenthood in the nation, but it can sure well do the job of protecting impression, impression, sorry, and protecting the children until the day they are of age to be exposed to mature content. The job of censorship is not to blind the eyes of children. It is simply to ensure that they will be exposed to the content at the right age when they mature. Thank you.
So can I add in?
Would you like to respond?
But first of all, there are classifications of films in place. So there are you stands for all kinds. Everyone can watch it, and it is children friendly. So and TV's airtime already segregated into different sections whereby a more matured films would be aired during late night time, and then you would air throughout the day. So that would not pose these issues into place. Thank you.
All right. Will anyone like to make a counter argument to this point before we move on to the next speaker? If no one would like to add anything, I will now pass the time to a member of the government.
So, as we all know, one of the government's duty is to, of course, protect the country, rule the country, and also the nation. And as the censorship board is acting under the government, it also holds a duty to protect the country's reputation. So censorships are imposed to ensure that films do not breach sensitivities such as religion, politics, the sovereignty of the Malay rulers, matters which are clearly articulated, and the principles of the Rukun Negara. In terms of theme, storyline, scene, or dialogue, films that contain sensitive elements that may lead to controversies or create disharmony among Malaysians could lead to other consequences. At the end of the day, it is part of the government's responsibility to educate the nation. So by doing so, it would be to allow good materials and suppress the bad ones, especially those that may derail their morality, their as a nation, and also respect for the king, government, and country. Movies that incite the act of racism may promote the same act amongst Malaysians, which could lead to horrible consequences like another reenactment of the 13 May 1969 incident, or provoke the friction between religions in the country. As much as people may object and demand for further freedom, it also gives the opportunity for people to abuse the freedom once they have it and cause harm to others. Controversies created have the power to ensue chaos in the country, and if it does happen, the country's reputation and peace will be destroyed. Being one of the popular media choices, movies have a high influence over sensitive topics like culture and religion. Although yes, movies are an expression of creative freedom, but it may not be safe for general viewing when it has the risk of sparking controversies. Hence the censorships and also the guidelines. If another riot was to be sparked because of the matter discussed in the movie, why won't the government try and prevent it from happening, especially when it causes more good than harm? And that is all for my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tricia, for sharing your point. Would a member of the opposition like to respond? If there no one would like to respond, I'll pass the time to a member of the opposition to state their point.
Right. Thank you. So to begin, in addition to the market of over-monopolized content of streaming sites, viewers would generally feel dissatisfied if parts of a film are omitted. This would motivate them to illegally download the censored film in its entirety off the internet. Scenes are cut, and yet audiences are still demanded to pay the full price, and this will only stress their dissatisfaction further, as they are not getting what they paid for and also anticipated for. To some extent, these scenes may very well be the more pivotal part of the film's plot, which have a direct impact on viewing the story as a whole, further diminishing its value for money. There have been ways to counter this censorship. Pivotal scenes that needed censorship are often visually slowed down, but has the audio still running in its normal speed, and in some cases may very well be omitted entirely. Scenes and dialogues are still censored in an 18+ rated film, despite having its rating clearly stated in public notice. Even with a theater full of an audience of legal age, this would then only defeat the purpose of categorizing these ratings of the films in the first place. And having presented these reasons, it's only obvious that viewers will eventually find a way to gain access to the films in their proper representation. With the abundance of illegal streaming sites and private torrent records, audiences will eventually detach from the desire to attend theaters, knowing that they will not be presented films the way the directors intend to. And that being said, this draws audiences. The dissatisfaction will only bring harm to the revenues of movie theaters in this country, as streaming sites are also widely available, providing a wide variety of content unavailable elsewhere and unfiltered too. And that concludes my point.
Right, thank you very much, Omar, for sharing your point. Would a member of the government like to respond before we move out time to the next speaker? Very well. Moving on, I'll pass the time to the next speaker for the government.
So my next point will be about national peace and public harmony. As we know, religious tolerance in Malaysia is nothing unfamiliar to those living here. Yet there are those who disregard its importance by being self-centered. It is a common understanding that the Malays are the predominant race here in Malaysia. Thus, there are laws and regulations in regards to the Islam religion, referring to any obscenity as an offense or sin. The laws and regulations for censorship are there to safeguard and respect the majority who practice the Islam religion, which do not allow any sort of visual and scenes that are pornographic in nature, as they would be against their practices and religion. This is why undergoing censorship in films is important. We who do not practice the said religion would see it as annoying, but what about our counterparts? I believe if we respect and understand each other's religious ethics, a common ground could be established so that the peace, harmony, and unity among the variety of races here in Malaysia are maintained. And that concludes my point.
Right, thank you very much, Vanessa, for sharing your point. We will now move the time to the last member of the opposition.
Thank you, government, for your point. I will proceed with mine, which is time has evolved and Malaysian mindset too. In a journal titled Film Censorship in Malaysia, Sanction of Religion, Cultural and Moral Values, it is stated that control policy, film censorship, was used by the British colonial who ruled Malaya to show their colonial dominance and do not tarnish the image of the West. Because of the volatile state of our society back then, the British government believed that the media will change the social order that threatened their existing power. Thus, of this regulation and censorship was used. But since then, Malaysia has progressed as a forward-thinking society. This backwards usage of censorship is no longer applicable for our society now. And to continue with censorship, it gives the government the control and the power that are one-sided, almost dictatorial, And if you're afraid of movies sparking controversy, how do you expect us to have a healthy conversation between each other to continue to grow as a progressive country? You'll be limiting the people to see different perspectives and views that are different from theirs, because movies are often representation of everyday life. Don't you think that the people should have the freedom of expression to watch whatever they want and have the rights to think and feel whatever they want, and to learn to communicate with each other to further create a healthy boundaries and have mutual understanding, which can lead to the peace and harmony that Malaysians are so often known for? Democracy is to give people the power to have choices and to decide what they want to watch. So that's it for my point.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your points. With that, we've concluded the points. We will now allow the opposition to. No, we will now provide the opposition to propose a question for the government.
Okay. Hi. To the government panels, we would like to ask, aren't more detailed film classifications could really set a better guidelines for viewers and also writers as well? Yeah, that's my question.
Sorry, can you repeat your question again?
So aren't these more detailed film classifications already set guidelines for viewers and writers? Yeah.
The film classifications that are right now present is only U, PG-13, and 18. And these are only 3 film classifications. And the chairman of the Malaysian Censorship Board has already said that these are not enough classifications and that they plan to introduce more classifications, because they, despite having 3 classifications, it isn't that specific and it still limits a lot. Yeah, the censorship is still needed because of these 3 classifications. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
I will now allow the government to propose a question for the opposition as well.
So our question to the opposition is, to the earlier point of your first speaker, where uh, we want to ask if you can give us an example of the scenes that have been cut or censored that limits creative freedom.
A local film called Song Lap had to cut 2 scenes that shows the usage of drugs. These scenes are prominent in showing one of the characters' character as he is a drug addict. Now, these are real life issues that needs to be talked about. Like, drug usage happens in real life, and if we are avoiding the issue, we are not showing it on screen, then how are we gonna learn about it? How are we gonna know that it's real and it's happening? And as for creative freedom, limitation of creative freedom exists as early as the script writing stage. As all the script writers, executive producers, and directors are aware of the censorship, they have to work around it and come up with less explicit ways to showcase their vision. Now, of course, the end product isn't what they picture because of the censorship, but they make do of what they can. But again, if we do not show all these specific scenes that is happening in real life, then how are we as Malaysians gonna move forward and think critically of the real life problems? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing your point. I will now allow the government to propose their concluding points.
So, from our side, in conclusion, we believe that films that undergo censorship might serve as a nuisance to some, or even the majority of the film enthusiasts here in Malaysia. But due to the religions that reside here in Malaysia, it is a necessary step to uphold the laws and regulations of undergoing film censorship, as this small gesture maintains the peace and harmony. Isn't it a small price to pay compared to the consequences that could ensue? And that concludes our point. Thank you.
Thank you for concluding. I'll now pass it to the opposition to conclude their points as well.
All right, thank you. Now, we've all said our times are changing, and children today should not be raised as they were 50 years ago, for they are born of a different time. The act of experiencing life's many facets, good or bad, is part of growing up. We must allow the viewers, young and old, to have a sense of transparency in the media that they consume, to experience life as it is. We can't truly protect the youth from all kinds of negativity, and to deny negativity is the same as pretending it does not exist. The arts needs to be expressed, good art and bad art, and the more we express, more genuine forms of art and its appreciation can be obtained for a better and progressive country. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I believe that concludes our debate for today. I would like to thank both panels for participating in this debate and sharing your views. With that, I would like to end today's debate.